Today I'm going to be discussing why salmon flies are extremely undervalued and what price people should really be charging whenever it comes to professionally tying salmon flies. Okay, first I'll talk a little bit about the tools. And basically this isn't factored into any cost of salmon fly, but your face is going to be a big contributor. As well as that, you have your tools. You know, your bobbin holders could be 30, 40, maybe even more pound for a proper one, something that you need to invest in. You could have pliers, you could have tweezers, you could have scissors, all bringing up the cost and the wear and tear of that, but that's not factored in this discussion. But let's talk about the materials and the cost of the materials. So first thing you're going to need is a salmon fly hook, and that could be a double, single, treble. But because they have salmon fly on them, they're normally branded at a lot more expensive price. So this is a salmon fly, this is a Partridge Patriot, and they retail around 90p to a pound. Given the fact that whenever you buy a 10 pack, I only get usually about 8 hooks worthwhile. They have quite a poor rate of quality, and I always check them before I tie on a fly. I would put on about a pound. So basically you're starting at a pound for your fly already before even wrapping on any material. So if we're going to use an example of a nice cascade, like I'll use an example of a blue cascade here, you're going to want some bucktail. And quality bucktail is important. I like, you'll probably not be able to see it in the camera here, but I like really straight bucktail. And trying to find bucktail can be quite difficult to source it, and bucktail retails at about £15 a proper bucktail now. That's 3 times what it was probably 10 years ago. So you'll need a mixture of all different colours, and particularly for the cascade example that I'm using today, you want orange and yellow. So given the price of that there, and you're combining a few colours, I would estimate the price of the bucktail to be about 20p for the fly. Again, not much, but it'll all add up. Next you're going to have floss, or tinsel, or both, that'll make up the body. Okay, so these spools retail at around £4.50 each. The amount of floss and tinsel you use depends on the hook size, but I would estimate probably about 5 to 10p. So let's say 5p to add on to the rolling total. Next you're going to need to rib the body, so you're going to use some wire or some oval tinsel, and again this is coming in about £4.50 a spool. So I would say, you know, you only get a few meters for each spool. I'd say probably 10p for each fly approximately, and that's given wastage and everything else. Next you want to add on a wing, and this time around I have fox pelt. So I find it a great material. You could use Arctic Runner, for example, other materials, but these patches have got quite expensive recently too. I used to get these for about £6. They're now twice that, sometimes even more, so about £12 to £15. Because of these small patches, I'd say probably about 20p you're going to use on that. Then you're also going to want to add on a hackle. Depending on the flies, I'm only going to use one hackle for this, for the example, but good capes, you know, I like the Chinese cock capes. You could use genetic capes. It adds cost, but it saves time. But most capes come in between £10 and £15 for a Chinese rooster cape. So looking at that there, I'd say it's probably about 15p of contribution to the hackle. And obviously if you're using 2 or 3 hackles, it's going to be more. And then lastly, and again it's a Marmite thing, but a lot of people would add jungle cock. So if you were to add in jungle cock, you're talking basically around, well, most jungle cock now is retailing about £100 a cape, 60 to £100 depending on the quality. Given the fact that you'll only use some of those eyes, you won't use them all, I would say jungle cock's going to cost roughly about between a pound and £1.50 per fly. So let's add 1.125 to the rolling total. So as it stands, our rolling total for just the materials is £2.95. This won't cover all the materials. You also have the likes of flice that you might want to add in. You also will have varnish and super glue. You'll have thread. You'll also have maybe Glow Bright for a flossed head, things like that there. So that all adds up the cost, but I'm going to keep it at the moment just at £2.95, and we're going to keep that. But there's a big hidden cost as well. So the secret cost is going to be your time. Particularly if you're a professional fly tyer, you're going to be wanting to make most of your time to tie as many flies as possible and make it as profitable as possible. Whenever I tie flies, I have all my materials lined up. I have my feathers prepared, I have my wire cut off, I have the floss cut off. If I was to do that without filming, I'd be doing that as I go. So it would actually take longer than maybe the 12-minute video that you see me tying. So I estimate that a fly like the Cascade with jungle cock on it could take me around 20 minutes. That's also taking into consideration that I'll need to coat the head 3 times with varnish and super glue. So super glue, one coat of super glue, 2 coats of varnish. So all in, I would say 20 minutes. I could even extend that a little bit. Say, for example, if I was using a layered tail, like a park shrimp or Calvin shrimp, but I could also reduce it if I was using a Herwine. So say a Herwine fly like the Stoat's tail, for example. So I'd say about average, you're talking about 20 minutes. You also aren't factoring in postage time, having to wrap up materials, write labels, go to the post office and everything else. So again, I'm being very conservative for these costs. But I would say reasonably, I would say 20 minutes. Yeah. So let's talk about the cost of your time. As it stands at the time of making this video, £12.21 is the UK minimum wage. So a third of that, taking into consideration 20 minutes, would be £4.7. With the cost of the materials and the £4.7 minimum wage, it comes to a total of £7.02 for a fly full cost recovery. In fact, that wouldn't even be full cost recovery, that would be just the bare minimum that I was discussing. The real living wage is actually £13.45, and that's what a lot of charities are pushing as the UK minimum wage. So this is what I would like to use if I was working on fly tying. Given those figures, it would be £4.48 of your time. That would be the cost that you'd be using to use the real living wage, which would give you a total of £7.43 per fly. So there you have it, folks. Nearly £7.50 for a quality salmon fly. So I have tied flies in the past. I'll never tie them again to sell. But people, I would say, at the time I think I was selling around £5. And some people would challenge and say, why £5? I get them £3.50 on eBay and everything else. Look, go get them on eBay. But I can tell you now, the quality will not be the same. Whenever you have mass-produced flies, usually tied overseas, there's going to be corners cut. There's going to be less quality materials. A fly is taken by a salmon and might unravel. I can stand by every one of my flies, as would most professional fly tyers as well, if they were selling them. So folks, think of that whenever next time you're making an order of a fly tyer. Hopefully you found this video useful. It gave you a real insight into fly tying. As well as that, if you were thinking about taking up fly tying, it's an honest assessment of the cost as well. It's not a way to save money. It's not a way to make money, but it's a way to enjoy a hobby and get quality flies for yourself and possibly your friends and family whenever you're fishing for salmon. If you did, do please share it, like and subscribe, and until next time, thanks very much. All the best.